Let's
no
roll.
objections.
We're
Thanks,
off and
Chris.
running.
That's good. The gang's all here.
All right, let's do this thing. Okay, I would like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of July 9th, 2024. It is 1 p.m. Unbelievably, we are getting started precisely on time, and we are live on a digital platform. We have 4 items on our agenda today, all kind of important ones actually, and well, except for the last one. And present here for the meeting, we have a small but very cool crew. From City Council, we have Randy Allison, Eric Biter, and Bonnie Katz, as well as myself, Liz Mealy. From the administration, we have Chris Black in IT, we have Derek Slaughter from the mayor's office, Valerie Fessler, currently from the grants office, and Jamie Livermore from the finance office, as well as Janice Frank, kind of bridging the gap there, and Peg Woodring. All right, yep, this should be, I think, relatively short and sweet. So item number 1 is a transfer ordinance number 13. Derek?
Yes, good afternoon, members of the Finance Committee. What you have before you for this one is a transfer ordinance back to HUD. And what happened here was this goes all the way back to 2019. There was one of the agreements we had with the contractor, and the homeowner at that time ended up not being compliant with HUD. And all HUD says is we just have to update that agreement, but in the interim, we have to make that repayment. We'll end up getting it back to go back into all of our programs that we do with HUD. But for the moment, just because that agreement there was not compliant, and Journey is in the process right now of updating the agreements from back then so that HUD's okay with them. So that's really all this is, the 36,541 back from 2019. And HUD just saying, listen, you just get this back to us, updated agreement. We'll get it right back to you to spend in your CDBG or programs that you have in our community development. So that's all, nothing major or anything like that.
Okay, got it. Is there a reason then why we're taking it from the emergency and reserve fund?
We didn't have, talking to Jamie, and I know she's on here, we didn't have anywhere else to repay that from. I don't think you can use the federal dollars that we have to repay them. We have to.
Not even like home funds, and we can't take it out of legislative contingency on the presumption that we're getting it back?
Well, we could do legislative contingency. Jamie, you could chime in. I think like anywhere in the general fund would be fine. We just couldn't use the federal funds to repay.
Well, because I know that we have a whole bunch of excess home funds in CDBG, right?
Yes, we can't use those though to repay this for this purpose. We just can't use those funds. We could use general fund funds, but we can't use CD or home funds.
So legislative contingency or anywhere else, that you would recommend would be fine.
I mean, I the only reason I'm asking is if in fact we're going to get this money back within the next month or two, it seems like a whole bunch of legwork to remove it by ordinance from the emergency and reserve fund and then replace it in that same fund in a couple, of months. So unless we're thinking that we won't get that money, unless we believe for some reason that money won't be coming back, it seems to me like it would be simpler to do a transfer from somewhere in the general fund. Jamie, would you have a problem with that?
The money will come back, but it'll become part of the CDBG money. It won't come back to us like as a reimbursement for what we're paying them. It will come back to us as project funds that we can use, but not funds that we can reimburse where we're taking the funds to make this repayment back to.
Understood. But really,
so if you take it out of the emergency fund, we're not going to get a check back from HUD to put the money back into the emergency fund. We can't.
And why can't we
money for that?
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we give HUD the money then out of HUD funds that they're requesting? I'm really confused now because then we're going to end up with a $40,000 overage, right? Do you know what I mean? We're going to have $36,541 of inexplicable money.
Yeah. And then they're gonna send it back to our program funds.
And we can't take
We
it
can
out.
ask, I don't know the answer to that question right now. I could check with HUD between now and Thursday.
Why don't we do that, Derek, if you don't mind?
Yeah,
Because that just seems real. There's just going to be a lot of problems there. You know what I
agreed.
mean? I mean, I don't feel like the general fund in any format giving additional money to community development. Not because I mean, just it seems to me like it's going to make for some pretty bad accounting. Unless Jamie, was there any proposal from HUD for how to deal with that out of the gate?
No, because it's for non-compliance. The money was from a project fund, so it has to be repaid. So they gave us, the grant money for this. And because the project wasn't compliant, we have to repay those funds back into HUD funds, and we can use them for HUD projects, but we can't use them for anything else. That's why that's why the plan was to use the emergency fund, because there really isn't anywhere else to, take that money from, because it's
Permanently.
not going to come back
Right.
to
But
that fund.
I guess I'm just not understanding why HUD wouldn't let us. So we expended the funds out of community development.
Yes.
Okay. For a project with a homeowner. And we will eventually recoup. Yeah, Derek, could you dig into it a little further?
I'll
Before
dig into it a
Thursday?
little
I'm
more.
sorry, this just,
No,
I mean, if
that's
that's
fine.
what we have to do, I guess that's what we have to do, but I'm not really, that it doesn't make any sense. I mean, there are a lot of things about HUD that don't make any sense to me, but still.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep,
Okay.
I can definitely dig into this a little more.
Okay.
Sorry, Councilman
Got it.
Allison, what do you want to say?
Well,
Yeah.
I just wondered where the process broke down, that it wasn't identified as non-compliant before the money was spent. I wonder.
It was something to do with the agreement. I'll dig into a little more. It wasn't
Okay.
necessarily that the project was not compliant. It was the agreement they had between the homeowner and the contractor. HUD did not like the agreement. So that's why they said you update the agreement that we have with HUD, or we update the agreement that we have for the project. HUD would feel comfortable. So it wasn't necessarily the actual project. It was just the agreement that we had that HUD did not like. But again, I'll get more into the details and see a little more into the weeds and get some additional answers for you all for Thursday. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know though. First off, it goes all the way back to 2019. So that was before any of us, but
Right.
I'll check it out and see, what's giving them heartburn, and then I'll report back to you.
Well, and this presumably came out of some of the compliance stuff that CEDACOG was doing, right? Wasn't that in 19 and
Possibly,
20?
I sort of picked this up on the tail end here, so I will. I'll definitely get more information. It'll be easy to get, and then I'll get it to you all.
Okay. I was going to say it might just be useful to have CEDACOG come on Thursday. That way, if there are any other questions about it, then we could, right?
Sure, I'll touch base with them.
If this came out of something that CEDACOG was doing, then they might be the people best, able to explain
Absolutely. And it may have. I'll touch base with HUD and CEDACOG, and if it was CEDACOG, I'll have them here because clearly they'll be able to do more of an explanation than myself. So.
Okay, got it. And Eric, anything from you?
No, I appreciate everything that you've brought up.
Okay, got it. All right, then I guess thanks for finding out some more about that, Derek, and we'll look forward to discussing it on Thursday.
Sure. Yeah.
So the next item on our agenda, we've got the precise wording here. A resolution appointing a director of finance and administration. Floor is back to you, Derek.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Be the same two people just talking. So thanks again.
Okay.
Yes, what you have before you is resolution here. As you know, we had Heather Jacoby, and she moved on for a different job that suited her schedule very well. And so we put out applications or posted a job. And the recommendation today is to elevate Jamie Livermore. She's been with us for coming up on a year and a half, doing a great job as our budget and fiscal officer. And really it's been since Heather left, really serving as interim finance director down there. She's worked through the audits that we just presented at the last council meeting. She was instrumental in working with Zelenkowski and getting those out. She's doing it currently for 21 and 22 and all the other things that come with the finance office. So she clearly is familiar with the city and our finances, having been there and working through it with the new software. You know, she was part of that process and getting all that up and running with Springbrook and our HR, payroll, financial software, that all those processes. I know there was a question because clearly her husband is a department head as well, Scott. So we had that in place, and she's started working with the city that she clearly cannot approve. Anything that comes from Scott, we had that in place. Other folks, Kristen now, it was Heather, Kristen approves initially, and then it goes down to Kevin Mackey, our treasurer, and Peg, our controller, for the final sign off, which they do the final on everything regardless. So in this role, Jamie would just continue on not approving anything from Scott, which is how it's been for nearly a year and a half anyway, that nothing comes through. And of course, with the new software, it's very easy to manage that workflow now. Saves everyone a lot of time across the city. The new software is going very well. So anyway, so Jamie is here in front of you for that consideration. And with my humble opinion, we're fortunate to have Jamie, because I know there are organizations around us that have had a director of finance position open for quite some time and are not able to fill it. We were fortunate with the last couple, actually, that we have folks that are familiar with the city and with the procedures we have here. Turn it back to you for questions of myself or Jane.
Okay. Randy, Eric, Bonnie, I guess, as long as you're here. Does anybody have any questions?
No, the only thing that I would like to say is that I appreciate you being forthright with the protections that we have in place. And again, Jamie, I unfortunately don't know you on a personal level, but it is very important that we have that for the public, not just, and also for your own protection as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Agreed.
Completely agree. We put that in place the day she started with the city. So even as budget and fiscal officer, there could be times where, so we didn't want that to happen at all. So.
Randy, anything from you?
Yeah, Jamie, we know how complicated and convoluted city government at any level of government actually finances can be. Do you have everything you think you need right now, as far as where you're at in the process of acclimating yourself to all of this? I know you've been there for a while, so it's not brand new to you, but do you have enough hands on deck and that kind of thing?
We do. I think once we hire for the budget and fiscal officer position, it will be much easier, because right now I'm doing both. But yeah, I mean, I think that our office is staffed well, and I think we have a good staff in here, and a good staff throughout the city, and all the resources we have. I think that we're in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm in a good place with with the departments, and the mayor is very helpful, and we have a good group here.
Great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Liz, can I ask a question?
Sure, Bonnie.
Jamie, you are one man down at this point, and you said you're looking to hire a budget director?
Budget and fiscal officer, yes.
Okay, and has it been sent out for applications yet?
No, I think we were waiting for this position to, fully take effect.
Okay, because, as we all realize, budget season is coming up really, really fast. And and it's a lot of work. Also with the software, this more or less takes and I'm not saying this, lightly or anything, but the software, I think, doesn't that help replace maybe a person and make your life easier where we didn't have that before?
Um, sorry, Mayor, if you want to take that.
Oh, go ahead, Jamie. No, go ahead. I'll follow up with you.
It doesn't necessarily replace a person. It replaces a lot of manual input, but it still has to go through processes where we need people to review. So we currently now have the departments entering all of their invoices into the software, whereas before our department did that role. But we still have, processes in place that we review what they're entering, we review what they're purchasing, we make sure that the policies that we have in place are being compliantly adhered to. So, I mean, it helps level the playing field a little bit. Before we were kind of just inundated with paper. Now, it's flowing nicely electronically, but I don't know that we could eliminate any positions at this point.
Yeah,
I wasn't judging that way. I really wasn't. I was just saying that
that's fine.
having that software helps.
It's very helpful. Yes, it has been very, very helpful. The office doesn't look as much like a fire hazard with paper everywhere. So that's much more helpful, but it has been very helpful in bringing us into, the current technology. It's been a wonderful advancement in the finance department.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up. We only have the director of finance, budget and fiscal officer, and then Kristen, plus a part-timer. So it's really only, there's no way we could really eliminate. That would get them back inundated again with a ton of work. So, but the software, Councilwoman Katz, to your point, has been tremendous in what Jamie just said, the workflow, saving people a ton of time from having to write out all the check recs and purchase orders and all of that, to now just be able to go, click. And if we're looking for something, if Jamie has a question, it's just right there at our fingertips instead of having to dig through piles of papers to try to find it. So it's definitely been much needed improvement, as was mentioned.
I was just asking only because I never wanted to go back to the way things were, because it was chaos at times. For one, and really, there were two people only, and I never wanted to see that happen again. And that's why I was asking the question.
Yeah,
I'm
I think, thanks, Bonnie. Yeah, I think what we saw for years with an understaffed finance department and without an adequate record keeping system or record system and management system, was that the finance department got so completely buried that we needed Tracy to dig us out for about 2 years. To begin to try to figure out what was going on. So I don't think that any of us wants to go back there. So we will start the hunt for a kind of a second in command in the finance department, as soon as this resolution passes council on Thursday, then I assume.
Right, we'll start, pending council Thursday evening, we'll start Friday morning.
Okay. So I think my only, once again, I think Jamie will make a great person to head the finance department in particular, especially because she spent quite a bit of time with Tracy, kind of getting things ironed out. I think all of that experience is going to feed into her being perhaps best able to manage the finance department, given just sort of the experience of digging us out and not wanting to go back there. And I appreciate the system that we developed thus far with Scott Livermore, her husband, and a sort of a separation of powers, if you will. Have we, the only point at which it would concern me is, so if you have to, if you go on vacation, Derek, who runs the city?
It would be whoever, I can appoint any director. So it could be, right now we have, it could be, so our directors currently would be Director of Human Resources, so Cynthia Hart, Director of obviously Public Works, which would be Scott, Director of Community Economic Development, which was Skip. It could be any of the directors initially. So I would just, I can appoint any director, then it goes down from there. It could be Janice, city clerk,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. So
Got it. But so there would never be a situation then where Scott would effectively be Jamie's boss as the director of finance, and there would be any kind of conflict, right? Like he would not be appointed to run the city if.
no, the only way would be if Cynthia would get sick or for some reason Cynthia Hart wasn't able to do it, and then, pending our Department of Community Director of Community Economic Development, if they weren't able to, I mean, there would be, a couple people
Right.
prior to that. It would be, so there would be no way right from the very beginning where it'd be Scott or Jamie, where I would just go right to them and say, you're going to run the city in my absence.
Got it. So I think I'm mainly asking because it strikes me that might have some impact. We've just been struggling with a whole bunch of different audits and recommendations from auditors about separation of powers. And obviously having a married couple, one of them running the finance department, the other one running the city, I think would probably generate some flags there. So it would basically it would have to be some level of disaster situation or something like that, which would make that happen.
Yeah, we actually checked on that. Not because this situation, just when I traveled out of the state, and Austin White, our solicitor, actually said with today's technology, it would have to be obviously either I'm in the middle of the ocean somewhere and have no service, or, for some unforeseen reason where I was not able to have a cell phone or a computer, which would be highly unlikely. So pending, like you said, some type of tremendous disaster, which we'll never have. That scenario should never arise.
Okay.
And even if it did, there's still a couple people in front of Jamie and Scott that we could appoint.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, that was kind of what I was asking. And then I'm guessing this will also come up during the full body of council, but we've talked a couple of times about separating finance and administration. I think, is it Adam Yoder who unified them at some point back in the day? Anyway, I mean, I guess I'm wondering how you and Jamie view her role as director of administration currently, and or if we plan to at some point in the near future remove that from her job title. Because it doesn't seem to me that the role currently really envisions much dealing with administration, but I don't know if we're planning to incorporate that into the job or not.
No, not at all. So I've been working with Austin on that as well, and I did talk with President Yoder a few times, and so we are hoping to update the administrative code very soon. Hopefully the first meeting in September, I can send drafts out. I've been working with Austin White on that, got some of his input back and forth, because there's no way that you could run the finance department and the administration. There's just not enough time in the day. So that's definitely, we see that as two separate jobs. You have the director of finance, then you'd have the director of administration. And clearly, right now, Jamie would just fill the director of finance. If and when, the administration city council feels comfortable funding a director of administration, if we get to that point, we can have those discussions. But right now, there's no way that Jamie would be doing anything as far as, chief of staff or anything like that.
Okay. Well, I would advocate, I'm sure that there's a job description related to the director of finance, correct?
Yes.
To the position that Jamie's taking. She's aware of the responsibilities of the position that she is assuming.
Yes.
I would advocate, even if we don't intend to fill the position, that we make the same list for the director of administration and help ourselves to envision what that position would look like. Because it seems like it might enable us to either better understand the need to fund it or better distribute those responsibilities so that we don't need to fund it. But I do fear a little bit that there's a gap there where it's sort of being done piecemeal. The jobs that a director of administration would do are sort of being done piecemeal because they may not really be allocated to anyone in particular, aside from you, Derek. So anyway, that's a ways down the road, but I just wanted to ask. It didn't strike me that Jamie was really seeing herself as also the director of administration, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something there.
And I think it goes back also to what we just had talking about separation of powers. I don't think the director of administration should also, if you're overseeing administration, I don't think you should then be a separate. You also have a department head role as well. It's kind of.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because we did to a certain extent witness the director of finance and administration roles being combined in like the 2010s in the city. And I don't think that worked out particularly well for us. So I would be eager to separate those for that reason.
Great.
So, yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any further questions on this item? All right.
I don't.
Okay. Hearing nothing, then we move along. Jamie, thank you. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be promoting from within for both of these positions, or to be looking to be, thinking that we may be promoting from within for both of these positions. I think because we know that we have in you a good and reliable employee with a good handle on the responsibilities of the job. And I think we know, because you've already been in the department, that you're not getting in over your head, and that's a real comfort. So I appreciate you stepping up for the promotion here.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, all right. Then the next item on the agenda is a resolution to appoint a director of the Department of Community and Economic Development. Mayor Slaughter, back at you.
Yeah. Yep. Good afternoon again, members of finance. What you have before you is a resolution to appoint director of economic development. Our recommendation for this one is Valerie Fessler, who is currently serves as our grant administrator and doing a tremendous job in that role. We will have we were just discussing a 6-month report. She's been here for about 6 months, and it's been unbelievable the amount of money that she's been able to bring in. But anyway, we can cross that bridge here shortly. So she has extensive background in development. She has had a number of different positions in and around the community. And we feel like, again, with her being here in the city and working in this capacity, and given her background as well, in the jobs that she's had previously, she fits really, really well in this position, and has familiarity with the city now. And it just really is working out very nicely, and we feel as though she will be a tremendous asset in this role. And we would look, again, I know we just talked about it with the budget and fiscal officer pending Thursday night. This grant administrator position has arguably been, and you can ask any of the city employees, one of the best positions that council has created. It's just alleviated so much work, as again, we were piecemealing a lot of the grant oversight and compliance and reporting to various entities, and to bring it to allow Valerie to, not only does it help with that, but then also go after all the number of grants that are out there. And I believe Councilman Biter even recently has been working with Valerie on a grant opportunity. So it's just been a phenomenal position that we now have in-house, and it's paid huge dividends. So anyway, we definitely will look to fill that role. We do not want to get rid of it. Everyone has been extremely appreciative of that position. But we are excited, again, to recommend Valerie for the director of economic development, and thinks that she will be transformative in that role as well. She's here for questions. Awesome.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Derek. Randy, Eric, questions to start out?
I don't have any questions other than can we clone you somehow? And you could
That is kind of what I was thinking.
do both of those things.
That's good. Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful to have you promoted, as Liz said, both positions. So that's great. It's been wonderful having you in the grant flow there. So we need to look long and hard to find somebody that can do the same, or at least be willing to learn under your tutelage. So
Thank you.
yeah, that's all I have.
I mean, and we're talking millions of dollars. I mean, not like, Valerie has been instrumental. It's been incredible. She'll be able to give a report.
Be careful, you're going to make me vote no on this.
But as you said, Councilman Nelson, she's gonna be right there, so show whoever
Exactly.
is that, they'll be, just said it, with her, under her tutelage, so it's good.
Yep, great.
Okay.
I just
Yeah.
had a general statement that I'd like to ask. Obviously, we do have a lot of projects that are in the works. And Valerie, I do hope that you're going to continue to see through with the project that we're working on together. But what's the plan for her to have a balanced workload of making sure these projects are seen through and also transitioning into this new role?
You wanna talk, Valerie, you want me to, we can tag team?
Sure. I mean, I can just mention briefly, I've been keeping a pretty elaborate spreadsheet of all the projects that I'm working on and, you know, which phase of the projects they're in and what items are left outstanding. I've been working with Delta Development on some of the projects that it makes sense for them to play a role in. So certainly there will be a place for them to pick up some slack if necessary. I've been working ahead on all of the grant projects that are due between now and September to make sure I have, you know, everything completed as of today that I'm aware of, you know, that needs to be out there as far as letters of support and other things that, related to the grants. So I do have a pretty good handle on my current workload, and, you know, have just been keeping in mind that if I do have the opportunity to move into this new position, you know, what that might look for a new person and how I could start to plan for them. So I have, you know, been doing some of that to the best of my ability.
Right. So yeah, we've been discussing that, you know, what that transition will look like. And once the person is hired, what that transition will look like, working with Valerie and getting up to speed. But again, with her not actually leaving the city, we feel as though we're in an okay position because she's going to be right there. And if they do have any questions as they're transitioning, Valerie can answer those. And it's somewhat of a slightly slower grant period. It's never really slow, but you know, as we go into July and August here, there's some recess and things. But as we get back up into the fall, you know, this person, hopefully we get them, like Councilman Allen, hopefully not too long. Hopefully it's pretty quick. We'll look hard, but hopefully not too long. And get them in here, get them ready to go as we hit the ground running for the fall grant cycles. So they should have a good foundation by then, and with all of the documentation and spreadsheets that Valerie has kept, it should be a relatively smooth, you know, transition.
Liz, I have a question.
Sure. Shoot, buddy.
Correct me if I'm wrong in some instances, Liz and Randy. In the past, there were never any really line items for the city paying salaries. And that came about in the last two budgets. Are we going to be able to go back to where all the HUD and everything else brings us money in to pay for these salaries? Number one. Number two, we're working with CEDACOG, and CEDACOG, we're paying them to work with the department. Will we be able to go back to, do you think, keeping everything in-house and the capabilities of working on our own? I think CEDACOG was there to, the transitions that were going on, there were a lot of missteps. And, you know, having someone come in there with maybe a little bit more knowledge can straighten out those things. Am I on the right path, or am I overstepping?
No, I think I would agree with you on that. I believe once Valerie gets situated, we might be able to bring that back in-house. I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse too much, but I think that's definitely a possibility. And as far as the salaries, part of it's come to the general fund, part of it is still funded from the federal dollars. I don't remember the exact percentage off the top of my head. I think, what is it, 20%, I think, can go to you know, administration. I believe Valerie may, I don't know off the top of my head. Anyway, there's a certain percentage that can fund their salaries that we're using, and then the general fund is somewhat. So go ahead, Councilwoman Neal, that'd be good.
I was just going to say, yeah, there's a 20% administrative cap out of most of the funding that we receive. I think it's 10% of home funds. But then individual projects also have different administrative caps within them. But Bonnie, to your point, I think, correct me, Randy, I don't know if you remember, it seems to me that the community development department was taking about maybe $375,000 out of, like, the city's budget for community development last year was about $375,000 out of the general fund. But I could be wildly wrong. And buying our contract with CEDACOG is only about 150. So I guess what I'm saying is we're unlikely to realize, even if we were to take CEDACOG's responsibilities back in-house in the department, I think there will still be money coming out of the general fund to support the community development department. And I don't necessarily see an issue with that. I think the question is always, we have always wanted the community development department to do more than manage a shrinking federal allocation, right? So the question is really, Bonnie, what else is the department doing, and how can we make sure that we get good value out of the city's general fund investment into that department in terms of a return on
More or less what I was, I guess, coming through.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a question that I had for Valerie specifically, because, well, looking back over your resume, Valerie, it seems as though you've been in a lot of fundraising roles in your career in the past, and then you did like community outreach with, as well as it looked like some fundraising with the rescue workers. What do you see your role? I know there's a job description, but what do you see your role? What are you hoping to bring to the community development department as the director?
To kind of echo what you already said, I envision the department being more than just managing the existing allocations. I think that there's going to be a period of time where we're going to need to take a look at what funding still needs to be spent down, what all the regulations are around that. There certainly is going to be some time straightening things out based on my understanding. But just like you said, Liz, I don't envision it being just the administration of those funds that we're quote unquote, entitled to. Having conversations with homeless service providers and housing service providers and seeing the needs that they have in the community and the things that municipalities are able to apply for that we could serve as a pass-through. In my existing role, I can probably list 10 businesses who have reached out to me and said, hey, are there grants available through the city for me to improve, for me to expand, for me to do this, for me to do that? So I really, look to sort of get things in order and then take a broader look at the needs of our existing homeless service providers, housing service providers, housing needs, small businesses, and see what role the city really needs to fill and what gaps there are and what funding is available in order to, accomplish that. And when you talk about that budget amount and is CD funded by the general fund, I envision it being much more than just CDBG and home. And, that is my goal and my hope. And I know those programs are complicated to administer and complicated to understand. And I hope that I can become that expert so that when we're in conversations like this, I hear everyone say, I know that HUD is confusing and I'm not sure about X. I'd really like to, become the person who can just answer those questions for you and keep things moving appropriately and make sure that contracts are accurate and, things are happening the way they're supposed to be happening, get systems in place that work so that we can, advance the department and really better serve the needs of the city.
Good. Thanks for that, Valerie. I think that actually mirrors the vision that I've been hoping that we'll have for community development for a long time now, because I think it really has the potential to be the most impactful department within the city, the one that can best relate, obviously, to the community at large and provide services to the community at large, and even that can act as a coordination. It may be that there are services that we can work with streets and parks to provide or other departments to provide, but if you're looking for a department that the community can reach out to request those things, sometimes it's, I think we have been missing some opportunities within that department. Right.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think some of it too is also like community coordination of services. So just coming from American Rescue Workers and seeing service providers in that aspect, and then coming here and seeing gaps in ways that either the city could be filling in or the city could just be simply providing information. We have lots of people reaching out to the mayor's office saying, hey, can you help me with XYZ? No, that's not something the city can do, but there's an organization called X that can help you. So I kind of see myself a little bit as a gap filler and a connection maker and a problem solver, to try to look at, existing resources and connections and how we can kind of tie everything together. And then the city also has the opportunity to apply for funding that other agencies can't apply for. So, that's kind of like the role that we can serve as far as, obviously we're not going to be housing people. We're not going to have homeless shelters. But we can get funding that other people can't get. So that's kind of where I think we'll be able to fill that gap and then continue to make those connections for other service providers and businesses.
Great. And how do you feel about some of the other roles that community development's taken on in the last couple of years, such as the land bank, the redevelopment authority? They've been sort of a liaison. Do you feel comfortable doing that? Would you prefer to see that shift from being a community development responsibility?
I only know bits and pieces of those responsibilities, so I do need to learn more about what that director's role will be. And I know that, Skip has transitioned to being the executive director of RDA, so I think that will probably, the relationship there might look a little bit different with the city. So I think there's some conversations to be had there, and some things we need to look at there. But when you're talking about, just generally speaking, removal of blight and things like that, it does go hand in hand with the work that, will be happening with CDBG and home funds. So there's definitely a way that we all need to play, well together there and communicate well and work together there. I'm just not 100% sure, what that all needs to look like on the day to day. If that makes sense.
Okay. Well, I guess I would look forward to a report from the grants office before your tenure there ends, understanding what you've accomplished so far there.
Sure.
In part because I think that report and having something actually on file somewhere will help us to justify maintaining that position in the next budget round. Do you know what I mean? Yes. But then I also think, Derek, if you'd be okay with this, that it sounds to me like maybe like at the beginning of next year or something like that, once you've had time, presuming that you are appointed as the director of community development on Thursday, then maybe like with a, 6 months later or so, sort of sitting down and looking at what's happening in the community development department, maybe a report from community development at council, just so that we kind of understand if there are ways in which we're hoping to change direction there. I think that might be useful if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
And in particular, while I think all of us would be super excited to save $150,000 by bringing the reporting back in-house from CEDACOG, I would also say that I think that there are a lot of elements of reporting for community development in HUD that we may not be best able to do in-house. So anyway, I can appreciate your point, Bonnie, but I would also say that if we can realize, if we can meet other goals with community development by outsourcing a lot of the paper pushing sort of stuff to a firm that specializes in that, I don't know that I would think that was a bad thing.
Yes, I agree 100%. If we can have that outsourced for $150,000 and then have staff members have the opportunity to acquire, $2 million worth of additional funding in the time they would have spent doing those reports, that's definitely a no-brainer,
Yeah, that's kind of, I think there's opportunity cost, and for a long time the community development department was largely staffed by people who were busy filing paperwork with the federal government. And I don't have a beef with that, but if there's somebody else who can do it faster and is doing it for multiple municipalities, it might be better to let them do it.
That's how that came about, was actually us talking to other municipalities, and they said, why are you spending so much time just, doing reports and not getting your community development folks out there actually doing community development? So that's sort of where it came from. And, CEDACOG, and they do it for a number of municipalities. So anyway, to your point, Councilwoman Mueller, yes, that's exactly the reason we looked at that, so that we can free up their time to do development.
Yeah, so I think, on the hopeful presumption, Valerie, that you might stay in the role for a while, I think it would be a good idea for us in the slow season at the beginning of the year to sort of sit down and look at the role of community development and get a sense of how we can expand that. and just kind of try and build on the impact of the department in the community. Because I think, assuming you receive the votes to be appointed on Thursday, I think you have the potential to really make a big impact on that department and take it in some new directions, and that would be exciting.
And I would agree that there's going to probably continue to be some level of relationship between RDA Land Bank. We were just at the property in Moss Ave this morning that the RDA acquired, and that was the burnout fire property from a number of years ago.
Mhm.
Tremendous progress. We're
Wow.
really excited, and we're going to be putting out very soon here to get council and invite. It's just at the beginning stage now, but basically say, look, our RDA, thanks to city council, has funds, and they can start to do more blight remediation, blight elimination, rehab, whatever the case might be. And so I think there is a role that they play together in that, but it may be not necessarily maybe as involved as it currently is, but it's a lot of good things that are happening over there too with the RDA that they now they have resources. So we'll get that information out to you guys as well. But
I was gonna say that's something I would also appreciate knowing. I think it helps as council people when people are constantly reaching out to you about things that they feel need to be done in the city, to be able to point out the things that are being done in the city that they may not have realized are happening. And and the more kind of frontline information we can get about that, the more we can, be emissaries, whether it's in interviews with local news media or which I'm going to pretend that I do, but Randy might actually do them. I think it helps us to help maintain the positive image of the city, and it helps us to put all of that out there. So anyway, okay, well, that's I think both of these new appointments are exciting to me, and it sounds as though they're exciting to the other members of the finance committee as well. I'll look forward to discussing them further on Thursday, obviously. But Valerie and Jamie, we appreciate you stepping up and stepping up internally, especially. And does anybody have anything else to say about this item?
I have a quick question. Mayor, did I understand Valerie saying that Skip is in another
yeah, the RDA is looking at, they were talking about they didn't have anybody do their day-to-day stuff. That was all falling onto our economic development team. So the conversation that what we just had was that they need to be doing more stuff, and the RDA was just sort of meeting to meeting. And so they're looking at getting an executive over there, and they're talking to Skip, and I can get more information from the RDA. But they wanted somebody to do the day-to-day stuff as far as, they're starting to acquire these properties, they're starting to do some of these rehabs. And they were just meeting once a month, trying to get everything into there. And it really wasn't conducive to being as productive as the RDA could be now that they have these resources. And so, because the RDA asked at the one meeting, they want to start looking at, they want to, like if there's 4 or 5 properties in a neighborhood, instead of just doing one-offs here and there, could they start to transform a whole neighborhood of blighted properties? And so that's where the conversation started to go, as far as maybe they have a dedicated, like the water authority or any of our other authorities, that they have, a staff member or two to help them with those day-to-day instead of just one meeting a month. So I can get an update from the RDA for you, Councilwoman Katz, on that. Where they stand.
Is there going to be a salaries involved?
I believe I'll ask the RDA to see where they're at. I believe so. That would not fall on us. That's going to be the RDA decision.
Okay.
That wouldn't be the city. No.
Okay, just questioning. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, and Valerie, you did a fantastic job. I wanted to see a grant writer for so long, and a good grant writer is worth their weight in gold. And we do have to make sure that position is filled. And I think, Mayor, as you said, the amount of money she has brought in, because that's their sole duty, and also to take care of it, I think is fantastic. So going to miss you in that aspect, but also I'm excited about your new position. So, but thanks for what you've done, and hopefully we get somebody in that kind of caliber.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm done with questions.
All right, excellent. Randy and Eric, unless you have anything else to say, I guess we can close discussion on this item.
I'm
All right. Mhm.
thrilled. I'm thrilled with the results today.
Excellent, good. I'm pleased to hear it. All right, well, thanks, Derek, for finding us two solid candidates for these two director positions, and we look forward to discussing it further on Thursday. Item number 4 on our agenda is any related items. I think we've discussed a number of related items while discussing the official items on the agenda. Does anyone else have anything further to introduce? Okay, I know I saw Chief Snyder and a couple other people jump in here, and I thought maybe there was something else coming. All right, hearing nothing, then I guess I will move to adjourn our meeting. All right, thanks very much for coming, everyone. I'll see you on Thursday night.
You bet. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Liz, thank you for letting me interject some things in the meeting.
Bonnie, I'm not really sure exactly what the committees are doing or how we're doing it right now. So I think you might just as well say something if you want to ask a question.
Yeah, thank
And I'm happy to have yet another set of ears to remind me of the things we
Yeah.
talked about today on Thursday, because I will invariably forget to make a couple of the points. So I'm glad you're here, Bonnie.
Thank
All right.
We've always been
Thanks,
flexible
everybody.
in that area. Yeah.
What's that, Randy? Sorry. Oh,
I
whatever he
think
said.
you,
All
I
right.
think you left.
We'll see you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.